Hey everyone, this is Finding Value. I'm going to go over how we can read ratio charts to determine what's a good buy, what might be a good sell, and if we're swapping metals back and forth, this will also help us determine that. The question I had earlier, and it's been asked by a couple people, is how do you know when to sell? Or even how do you know when to buy? And I'll go over how I think and what I do, in my opinion, on this. So let's jump right in to the ratios. So what we see here is this is looking at palladium. So I've got gold, platinum, and silver to a palladium ratio. The bottom is cheap when it's high. The top is cheap when it's low. So in this scenario, what we want to see is we want to see something that's cheap across all three metals. That is a screaming buy or sell in that scenario. We've got the number on the left, so that's how many ounces of gold. 1 ounce of gold can buy however many ounces of palladium in the upper left. And we've got an averaging cost of the year. So these aren't spikes and they're not dips. These are averages. And we'll look into, when we get to platinum, real-time price charts where we don't have averages. But overall, up here, palladium's cheap, gold is cheap at the bottom. So palladium cheap, gold is cheap. Up here, palladium is cheap, platinum is cheap down here. And then down here, we reversed it. Palladium's cheap on the bottom, silver's cheap on the top. Now, if you look at 1999 to 2000, we've got expensive palladium, expensive palladium, expensive palladium. So palladium was a sell in 99 to 2001. They're expensive in every single scenario. So palladium would be the one to sell in 99, 2000, 2001. That's when I would probably do my selling, was right when this thing would turn and broke its downtrend. I'd be looking in 2000 to be a seller. In the 1980s and early 70s, palladium was cheap. Palladium down here is cheap. And palladium up here is cheap. I'd be a buyer of palladium in late 70s, early 80s, and even in the 90s. In the 90s here, palladium's cheap. Palladium's cheap. So we're cheap against all three metals. And whenever you're cheap against all three metals, you want to purchase that metal. Here, this would be a good time to swap your palladium to silver. Swap your palladium to gold, swap your palladium to platinum. But we'd have to look further to see which one is the best deal. Because silver could be cheap to gold in that scenario, and silver could be cheap to platinum in that scenario in the early 2000s. So we have to look at each chart. So we have to move on. And this is the platinum to gold to silver to palladium ratio. So we want to look into this as well. So if you notice, platinum is expensive up here and could buy a lot of gold. So we wouldn't want to buy platinum here. But anything under 1, we're under 0.50 right now, saying that platinum is extremely cheap. So we need to be looking at platinum. But up here, I'd be a buyer of gold, and I'd be looking at platinum only when it gets down here. Again, platinum to silver ratio. Silver's cheap up here, platinum's cheap down here. And right now, the ratio's at 34. It's down here. So platinum's cheap against silver. Platinum to palladium ratio, and we'll go over those charts here in a little bit. Palladium's cheap up top, platinum's cheap on the bottom. Platinum is below, it's down here right now, is cheap as all get out. Platinum was cheap in 99, 2000, and palladium's cheap up here. I actually purchased palladium in this range right there. That's where I purchased palladium. If we look at the real-time charts, we can see the platinum to silver ratios at 34. Platinum to silver ratio puts us way down here at the bottom. And I put these red lines in here saying that those are kind of our buy-sell signals. I just randomly selected them. Here is platinum to palladium, 0.40. We are platinum to palladium way down here. Platinum is a screaming buy in that ratio. And then platinum to gold's at 0.479. 0.479 is way down here. Screaming buy. We have platinum at a buy on all three metals are screaming buy on the ratios. I suggest you buy platinum, and that's why I am buying platinum. Now, I swapped metals. I swapped my palladium to platinum. And where did I do that? I did it right here. That's where I swapped my metals. And why did I do that? Because it's cheap. And it looked like, just for me going forward, I thought that we would have not very good car sales. Palladium goes into cars. I don't see the increased demand. Although the ratio is a screaming buy for platinum. So I said, we've got 3 buy signals on all 3 metals. I'm going to transfer some palladium into platinum. Again, I swapped some gold to platinum. And right down here is when I did it. Why? It had a nice kind of blow off bottom. It popped back up and I'm like, I'm out. Let's do it right in this area right there. So I swapped my gold to platinum. And here's the silver charts. So looking back, gold's a buy down here, silver is up top. You'd want to buy silver in this area here. You'd want to buy silver in 2019, which I was doing. Another one, platinum to silver ratio. So silver's cheap up here, platinum's cheap down here. In 2019, I would say it was kind of in the middle. So it was saying that platinum and silver were cheap. And then palladium to silver, we have palladium cheap down here, silver cheap up here. And this went all the way up into this range on a spiking top. And I'm going to go and show you that right now. Look at that. Boom. Right on time, double top. Swap your palladium to silver. Now, I was contemplating at this time right here in April, because that's when I was doing my swaps, should I swap my palladium to platinum or should I do my palladium to silver? Problem was, and I know a lot of people brought this up as well, is the premiums had spiked on silver. And I agree, that's what drove me to platinum. Silver was cheap during that time frame. No one could get it at this particular ratio. It never really hit in a physical market 160 to 1. Irrespective, it was far above 85 to 1. So even if you swapped into silver here, even though the premiums were high, you still would have made out like a bandit. So getting the absolute bottom or absolute top, I don't think is necessarily, like, you don't have to get the absolute top or bottom for this to work tremendously in your favor. I swapped to platinum when platinum was in this range here. Or I should say palladium was here. Because silver was more expensive. And I already held a butt ton of silver. So I wanted to get a little more platinum in my portfolio anyway. Now, going back, and I'm going to step back real quick to platinum to palladium because it's really nice charts here. So here's platinum to palladium. Let's just say you've got a 3.5 ratio and you've got, a 1.5 ratio. But let's just say it's 1 and 3 to make the number easy. If you swap your palladium for platinum and you do it on like a 1-to-1 basis and then you swap back, you're getting 3 times your metal. 3 times your metal when you do a round trip. Now, we went from, if you can time it and you cost average out and cost average in new money, you can cost average in this entire way into a metal, and you can swap 3, 4, 5 times 2 in and out. So we're kind of at an extreme. We're at like 0.4, 0.5. I swapped it because we were so low. I said, I'm swapping it all. And I swapped to platinum. Was it the right move? I think it was because we are extremely underpriced. Did I miss out on some upside for palladium? Potentially. I don't know. But I'm fine with that. I'm fine with swapping my palladium, which is expensive against every single one here. It's expensive against silver, drop down. It's expensive against gold, and it's expensive against platinum. I am fine with swapping my palladium into platinum. And if silver was extremely cheap over premium, I'd probably have swapped it to silver as well. I would have done maybe a 50-50 mix. But palladium is overpriced, and it could get more overpriced. I'm not in the game of speculating to the to the T. I want to get in my metals when it's cheap, and I know it's cheap, and do the swap when the ratio's cheap. And this is saying that it's cheap in every single metal. And I even did my gold to platinum. So the takeaway is you can increase your ounces of wealth quite dramatically doing this. And if you look at the palladium to silver ratio, you can get some gigantic moves. I mean, this is a 30-to-1, got down to 20. This is going from 20 to 140. That is a ridiculous move. Then it went from 140 back down to 20. So even if you use 30 and you went to 120, let's go 20 to 120 is 6 times. You're 6 timesing your wealth from this and back. That is ridiculous. You are not going to find this stuff anywhere that's going to move this fast. And if you look, palladium's doing it again. Right now, real time. Silver's outperforming palladium. So catching the absolute bottom, catching the absolute top, we try our best. You swap in and out of the asset. And if you look back in history, you gotta include palladium in your portfolio because it seems like that's the one that goes in opposite direction when everyone else, when all the other metals, that's the outlier metal. So if you look, silver was in favor or out of favor in 99-2000, but so gold was also out of favor, and platinum was out of favor. So I should say this is platinum to silver, but so you've got all these. You got to get the oddball out of favor, and out of favor. So palladium, you have to structure your portfolio and include palladium in your portfolio. This is Finding Value, and I appreciate you guys listening.